Hello and welcome back to the County Chat channel. There's been a bit of a break since the last episode. We've been in the midst of, the Vitality Blast, the One Day Cup, the hallowed 100, where we watch a whole season and wait for the Oval Invincibles to win. But we're back to the the Vitality Blast still going on. We've still got the quarterfinal stages going on at the moment. With that little shot to the Oval Invincibles, it did make me quite happy seeing Ravi Bopara put Surrey in the pipe at the Oval the other day. But all general thoughts aside on the English game, we're going to be doing a little the County Championship run-in special, I guess is a way of looking at it. We've got 3 games left and just sort of having a look at what teams need to stay up, or what teams need to get promoted, or what teams need to maybe get out of the wooden spoon. Kent. So it's just kind of a little wrap-up episode. Should be not wrap-up episode, sort of a little preview episode, as has been the theme of the summer of County Chat previews, but a little preview towards the end of the season. We'll be doing a little bit of screen sharing as I have sometimes done. And we'll just be looking at kind of the things that need to be going on. So we'll first off start with Division 2. I guess it kind of makes sense, as we've often done. Start with Division 2 and then have a look at Division 1. I'll do a little share of the screen here, and hopefully, if I do this, well, here we go, share. Beautiful. Hopefully, this will be showing you the top of the table. Oh, not the top of the table, the table for Division 2. So, of course, going from bottom to top, we've got Kent, Northamptonshire, Lancashire, Gloucestershire, Middlesex, Derbyshire, Glamorgan, and Leicestershire running away with it up top. It works quite well because you've got the next 3 fixtures, and those are the last 3 fixtures for all of these teams. So we can kind of see who they're working with on the run-in. Not that there's relegation or promotion, but Kent, I think literally would need to win all the last 3 games to not finish in the wooden spoon. I wonder how many times Kent have ever finished in the wooden spoon. It feels like not that many, but maybe that's just because they've been in Division 1 a few times recently. There's a bit of a sort of clumping of teams here: Northamptonshire, Lancashire, Gloucestershire, and you could maybe argue that Middlesex fall into that, of kind of the bottom half of the table. Lancashire play Kent kind of early on, so if they kind of put them away, then it would be a bit of a sort of not much to say of these teams here. I guess Gloucestershire could play a bit as a spoiler to Leicestershire, but aside from that, I'd say Gloucestershire very much on the peripheral, especially just given they just can't seem to win games this year. They've just had a bowling lineup which has been pretty toothless, you see they've got joint up the top with the most draws and only 1 win, which is the least even compared to Kent. So just showing teams that kind of can't get those wins over the line, like I often say, kind of are not too valuable. Middlesex, I have a weird feeling Middlesex might do a craziness and actually end up winning their last 3 games and going up in second place. They play Derbyshire, who are above them, and Lancashire, and Gloucestershire. So they're kind of all teams in and around them. You never know. With the form that Glamorgan have been in, they might just run away with it. But I just have a feeling, I don't know. I'm a bigger fan of Middlesex's squad than I am Glamorgan, so I'm still standing by my previous predictions. And then lastly, I guess Leicestershire. They'd have to trying to use not an expletive there, have to really mess it up, let's say, to make sure they don't end up in the top of the table. They're almost certainly promoted. 50 points is quite a lot to overcome. Well, speaking of, actually, I might go back to stop sharing, back to my face, and just show you the point scoring system, because I think this is not a bad thing to have a run through. So getting 16 points for a victory is probably a fairly normal thing to know. 8 points for a draw and all of that. And then the first inning bonus points, you get up to 5 points batting and up to 3 points bowling. That just give you a good sort of idea of how much points you could actually kind of make up on a team. I'd say if you won a game quite comfortably, you'd probably be up nearing in the 20s for points. Just, I guess, is always a worthwhile thing to know, perhaps. And with regards to looking at these tables and the teams, how they might be going forward for the future. I would say Derbyshire are still in with a good chance, I think. But in my opinion, other than Kent, actually, I guess, so they do play Kent. So, but they're playing Middlesex and Glamorgan, who are 2 of the sort of best form teams. If you look, win-win, draw, win-win. So I would say there's a good chance that Middlesex would go up. I think Derbyshire, personally, for me, they again just don't win enough games. They don't have the bowling to win enough games. They've got great batting. Caleb Jewell and Wayne Madsen and the rest have been having good seasons. So, yeah, it's an interesting one to look at. This is just sort of the fixtures and results for them. As you can see, we'll just go through quickly. As Leicestershire at home to Gloucestershire, I think could wrap up the title for them quite quickly. And then, Kent, Lancashire will be an interesting one. See if Kent have anything back left in their tank. And then, Middlesex, Derbyshire, I think that's one of the really key games in the run-in for who will get promoted. I think whoever wins that may well be in a real front forward position. Whereas I don't know, I just have a feeling Northamptonshire are in a bit of a good spell of cricket for all of their kind of sides. So I just have a feeling Glamorgan may slip up there away at Northampton. And aside from that, I guess it's a pretty regular run-in. I mean, Glamorgan then also played Derbyshire at Derby, which has just been a bit of a flat track. So getting a win there has been a bit of a tricky one. I say that so is Middlesex at Lancashire. So yeah, there's a bit to play for still in Division 2, but I think the general sense, obviously, is that they're off. Leicestershire kind of far ahead there, and kind of other teams is Derbyshire, Middlesex, and Glamorgan are kind of who might sneak that last spot. I kind of just realised that with how these share screen things work, you didn't actually see the sort of fixtures that I was clicking at and showing you earlier. So we'll go back to it here. But yeah, very briefly, there's kind of Leicestershire at Gloucestershire at home, and then I think that was one of my key fixtures. Here, these two here, Middlesex at home at Lords with their kind of that old timey sort of team that I just think can get it done, like Toby Rowland Jones getting a bucket full of wickets with a Duke's ball in this kind of weather that we've been having, just screams of it to me. But yeah, I'm still backing Middlesex to make a late season charge, as I've sort of been saying. But who knows? I certainly don't. I also predicted Kent and Lancashire to be at the top two, with Middlesex and Leicestershire came out of nowhere to fly up into the top. So yeah, it's I guess it's an interesting one in one sense. I think Leicestershire have kind of been the team who've just really dominated the whole thing, really, and I think Division 2 has kind of been in their wake for the most part. So it'd be interesting to sort of see. Sorry, I'm now trying to find a way back to just looking at Division 2. This is incredibly well planned for me here. Division 1. Here we go. You can't see any of this because I'm not purposely not screen recording. My troubles around the screen recording, trouble around my tabs. Right, here we go. Screen record. And we're on. And we're live. It's not even a blip. So yeah, kind of looking at the sort of 10 teams, I guess as always in Division 1, there's a bit more storylines going on, perhaps, especially with Leicestershire dominating Division 2, as I've been mentioning. Yeah, again, going backwards, Worcestershire are looking like they're in serious amount of trouble. They'd have to have a serious turnaround and fight back. And then you've got a team like Durham, who just had a really bad second half of the season. Let's forget I said they were a dark horse for the league this year, shall we? And they've had a real tough sort of second half. As you can see, that form guide is pretty tough to watch, much like Sussex. And, so it's an interesting one because I think a team who I think wouldn't be expected to go down, so I think a Sussex from sort of Hampshire down to Durham will obviously have to go down. So it'd be an interesting one. I think Worcestershire, unfortunately, my prediction at the start of the season was correct in the sense that I just didn't think they were the one team I was confident probably didn't have enough to stay in Division 1 this year. So it's interesting. It's quite a big relegation battle because if you see 129 to 114, going back to our win-loss thing, 16 points from 114. I'm no mathematician, but gets you to 130. So if you then account to bonus points and stuff, these sort of 5th through 9 is a really interesting one. Obviously, the first game up is obviously a really, really interesting one in the fact that Essex played Durham. I'm not actually sure if that is at Essex or at Durham, to be fair. But it would be a worthwhile thing to know. But at present, I think there's just a lot of things that are going on. I think Yorkshire are kind of trending in the right direction of, beating up on Sussex a few times, and not a few times, one time, and have got a pretty good run in. You see they play Sussex again, and then Somerset are obviously quite near the top, as they often are, but Durham right near the bottom half. So it'd be again, there's just a lot of teams that could kind of get dragged into it. I think, before you know it, if Durham beat Essex and sort of very possibly beat Worcestershire, as obviously Worcestershire are really scraping the barrel, but before you know it, they could be well out of it, because if you look, they play Essex, who are in 8th, Yorkshire, who are in 7th on the last day of the season, and Worcestershire are in 10th. So it's an interesting one. They kind of do all play each other, which I think is always a nice thing when it comes to a relegation scrap near the end of the table, or near the end of the season. It's just it's a kind of what makes kind of cricket quite a special game in this sense of the 4 days, and you can see it all play out and how these teams might sort of play against each other, I guess, simply. And as we kind of move out of the relegation scrapping lot, we kind of have a battle for third in a way. I mean, I don't know, you could even see Surrey and Warwickshire, kind of Somerset and Warwickshire, sorry, kind of getting dragged back into this mid-table melee, if you will. Because, Warwickshire play Surrey, but then they play Surrey and Nottinghamshire, so the top two, and Essex, which I think we can all agree that Essex kind of on their day are as dangerous as anyone. But moving kind of past the sort of inconsequential third and fourth spots that kind of may be up for grabs between Pride from Warwickshire and Somerset, is that we actually, we have another title race on our hands. Nottinghamshire have gone through a real drawing phase, so it will be a sort of interesting one to see. I think for Nottinghamshire, and a really obvious point, and again to just keep on beating up on Worcestershire, is that they really need to win against Worcestershire. If they get that win, they get quite a lot of points. That could really send them in the right way, especially if Warwickshire can kind of come out of the game with Surrey with a draw, which I think is very possible, especially with rain delays and stuff, as I think the September is shaping up to seem to be quite wet, or at least maybe I'm just being sort of biased towards the first week of September being absolutely hammering with rain. So it'll be interesting one to see. Then the game of the sort of the end of the season is Surrey versus Nottinghamshire in that penultimate week. And then they both play, Nottinghamshire then play Warwickshire, and Surrey play Hampshire. So kind of similar-ish teams in the sense of near the middle of the table. We'll just change up the screen to show you the sort of share something else. Here we go. Slightly more smooth than when I did Division 2. So we have Essex and Durham play each other at Chelmsford, and I've always I described at the start of the season that Essex, Chelmsford is a bit of a fortress. So it'll be interesting to see if Durham can get any points away from that, which they kind of will need to. Really, Taunton, I think, is a hard place to go get points, especially with Yorkshire. They kind of only have Dom Bess as a spinner. I say this like it will be a really dry pitch, just because Taunton tends to be, but you kind of never really know. It's hard to say with all the weather that we've been having how much that can change things. But these are grounds which are a bit better. Maybe I'm talking from my own experience of sort of village cricket, of how much the weather can change a wicket within literally weeks. So then we had the Oval and Surrey versus Warwickshire, where I think if Warwickshire will be hoping. Every team who isn't Surrey, let's say, will be hoping they can get a draw away from that game. Surrey have been nigh on impossible to beat this year. So in many ways, it's been a lot of teams trying to get draws away from Surrey, which I think shows just how dominant of a position they are in. Sussex and Hampshire, it's just a usual regular rivalry that we'll be kind of keeping an eye on as a Sussex fan myself. But again, both teams kind of need some points just to kind of make sure their position in the league is safe. And then lastly, for this round of fixtures, you've got Worcestershire, Nottinghamshire. As I say, I think it's a must-win for Nottinghamshire. Worcester has kind of consistently been the venue where most fixtures have had results this season. So I guess there's a good precedent to be set there for Nottinghamshire having a good chance to get away with a big amount of points from there. And kind of moving on latterly, we're going to moving on. Sussex have a lot of games at Hove against York throughout the end of the season, and that's positive for their potential to stay up. Worcestershire heading up to Chesley Street, that will be a must-win for Durham, really, especially with the game they're having against Essex at Chelmsford. If that doesn't go their way, then playing Worcestershire at home will be a must-win. Warwickshire, Essex, again, it's at lower the table. Birmingham has been quite hard to get results on, so Essex maybe will be going right there in mind for a draw. But here it is, the game of the end of the season, 15th to the 19th of September, 18th of September even. If you're in and around South London and have a free afternoon in the midweek, is that midweek? 15th of September, let's have a look. Yeah, it's as with all the other county championship games from Monday through Thursday. So very good for viewers. But yeah, if you after work popping in to South London, I think that will be a game worth watching. Because if Nottinghamshire can get anything from that, then I think that will put it in their hands, which will be a really interesting finish. And then, yes, Somerset, Hampshire, again, not a huge amount to play for. Hampshire will be trying to get some results. And then lastly, you've got the last week where, you'd hope Nottinghamshire, if they've at home at Nottingham, if they need a win, the curators will be making a spicy pitch for those bowlers to bowl on. And then whereas the opposite could be the case where Hampshire might produce a placid one against Southampton, against Surrey, sorry. So yeah, it's a bit of an interesting one. Again, Sussex playing Worcestershire. I think maybe that would be a hope that just if all goes wrong for Sussex as a Sussex fan, that they might be able to pick up some good points down at Worcester, up at Worcester. Everywhere's up for Sussex fans. And then, yeah, Yorkshire, Durham. Again, Durham will be needing to get any points they can really try and get, because, it's a struggle for them at the moment. But yeah, I'll stop sharing this. It's kind of a rarity here on the County Chat, is going back to our route, which was 6 months ago, but doing a little shorter video, just a little, look into the end of the season. And let me know of any videos that, you might want. I've seen a few from people with commenting. So, it's hardly a massive channel. I can kind of keep an eye on all the comments that might be made. If you've got any, I think of doing sort of some podcast episodes like I did with Umka the other day, with some good special guests coming up. Things like a transfer show, just keeping an eye on the transfers for next season, because there's been plenty of signings going on recently. Let me know if you've been interested in that. I might do it anyway, just for my own fun. Of course, going into the winter, we'll be kind of covering a bit more international cricket stuff, maybe looking at the Ashes a little bit more, and things of that ilk. But anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, make sure to leave it a like, leave it a save if you're listening on Spotify. Give us a follow on any kind of account. It's a really, helpful way to kind of keep the motivation up and enjoy this whole thing, which I do a hell of a lot. So, yeah, make sure you leave any support that you can.